Have you ever felt like you see the world differently from everyone around you? Like you're carrying a burden of insight and knowing that others just don't understand? You're not alone. Many of us experience moments when we feel disconnected from the people around us, especially when it comes to seeing things that others can't, or feeling things that no one else seems to notice. What if I told you that this ability to perceive what others miss is not just a burden, but a gift, one that can lead you to profound self-discovery and understanding? In this video, we'll dive deep into Carl Jung's theories on emotional and spiritual intelligence, the burden of seeing too much, and why you may feel lonely or misunderstood. You'll learn how intelligence, especially emotional and spiritual intelligence, separates you, not because you're better, but because you're tuned to a different frequency. We'll explore the anima and animus, two inner figures that influence your relationships, your desires, and your emotional struggles, and how they can guide you toward deeper self-awareness. Stick with me through this video to discover how you can reclaim your clarity, stop shrinking yourself for others, and finally embrace the parts of you that have always been waiting to be seen. This journey of individuation could be exactly what you've been searching for. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. The more you remain unaware of these hidden forces within you, the more they wreak havoc in your life. They silently build chaos, creeping through the cracks of your consciousness until you can no longer ignore them. Jung didn't soften the blow when describing them. He didn't romanticize their impact. Instead, he warned us of their overwhelming power. He called them dangerous, deadly, when left unchecked. Their presence is insidious, a constant force lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to strike. He spoke of their fatality, suggesting that they can, at times, lead to tragic consequences if we choose to ignore them. And yet, if you are someone who sees deeply, who feels with a rawness that others might never understand, these inner figures become all the more active. It's as if the clearer you become in the world around you, the more it stirs the shadows inside. The very clarity you gain in the outer world illuminates what lies beneath, awakening forces you've long buried. The fight is no longer just out there. It becomes a battle with yourself, one that often goes unnoticed. What you refuse to confront will inevitably manifest outside. You may chase after relationships that mirror the parts of you you've yet to live. You may fall in love with fantasies of who you could have been or should have been, not realizing that the person you're drawn to is just an echo of your unlived self. This internal conflict spills over into every relationship, making you fight not for what has been done, but for what these people trigger in you: your pain, your fear, your unhealed wounds. The tug of war between needing too much and trusting too little becomes your everyday reality. And the more you ignore it, the more you swing between longing and withdrawal, between desperately clinging to someone or retreating out of sheer fear. Jung's close collaborator, Mary Louise von Franz, captured it with painful simplicity. She said that the animus in women often fosters a deep loneliness, while the anima in men thrusts them into relationships that leave them confused and lost. This isn't some distant theory. This is your story, your history. Look back over your life. How many times have you been overwhelmed by emotions that seem to have no clear origin? How many arguments have you had where it wasn't really about the other person, but something ancient, something unresolved within you? This is why Jung's work is more vital than ever, because the battle we face is not just against external forces, society, systems, or relationships, it's against ourselves. We are fighting against parts of us that we've never truly met, never allowed to speak. Until we realize that the enemy is often our reflection, a part of us we've avoided, we will continue to find ourselves trapped in the same painful cycles. But here's the shift that can change everything. When you finally stop seeing the anima or animus as a flaw to be eradicated and instead see them as guides, everything transforms. You no longer blame others. Instead, you begin to integrate what was once fragmented within you. You start to reclaim the parts of yourself you projected onto the world, those pieces of you you denied or rejected. And it's not a neat, polished process. No, it's messy, full of emotion and turmoil. It's disorienting. It demands that you sit with the mirror, not the one on your wall, but the one within. It requires you to face the parts of yourself you've long refused to acknowledge, the ones you've disowned, the ones you've hidden away out of fear. And yet, as you sit with them, something extraordinary happens. The projections, those faceless fears, those impossible expectations begin to fade. The panic, the constant yearning for someone else to fix you, starts to soften, because now you're no longer waiting to be rescued. You are building something much more profound, a bridge between who you've been and who you are becoming. The person who walks across that bridge is no longer carrying the same burden. They've stopped running from it. They've turned to face it, to listen to it. And in that act, they begin to lead not by force, but through understanding. Some people carry their burdens in silence, while others bear them as a prophecy, sharing their truth with the world. Cassandra, the ancient figure cursed by Apollo, was one such person. She was given the gift of foresight, the ability to see the future with piercing clarity. But when she rejected Apollo's advances, he cursed her so that no one would ever believe her. Her burden became both a silent weight and a loud, painful prophecy. This is the painful, yet liberating truth. You too can carry your burdens, but only if you stop hiding from them, only if you stop running from the uncomfortable truths within. By confronting them, listening to them, integrating them, you begin to transform them. And in doing so, you take the first step towards leading not just in the world but in your own life. Cassandra wasn't silenced by the loss of her sight, but by the cruelty of no one ever believing her. She was given the gift of foresight, the ability to see what others could not, and yet she was condemned to speak truth that would never be heard. Her cries went unnoticed as the Trojans, unaware of the impending doom, opened their gates to the wooden horse. She wasn't wrong. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't unstable. She was simply unseen. In a world that turned a deaf ear to the very truth that could have saved them, she was left to suffer in silence. There's a reason her story continues to echo through time. Because Cassandra wasn't just a myth. She was a mirror, a reflection of so many of us who have felt the weight of knowing something others can't or won't see. How many times have you known deep down that something wasn't right? How many times have you said, "This doesn't feel right," only to have your warning dismissed? How often have you been told you're too sensitive, too much of a worrier, too overdramatic, only to watch your concerns unfold into reality? You didn't want to be right. You simply wanted to be heard. But the world has an uncanny ability to reject the truth that arrives too soon. Most people don't want to see the truth until it's too late. And those who see it first, who feel it first, who speak up first, those people are often labeled as unstable, as inconvenient, as overreacting. But what if you weren't overreacting? What if, like Cassandra, you were just awake in a room full of people still lost in their dreams? Carl Jung understood this weight all too well. "A man who knows more than others becomes lonely," he wrote, because awareness doesn't just illuminate the truth, it also creates a separation, a chasm between what you know and what you can express. And in that space of knowing, doubt can seep in. You begin to question yourself. Maybe you are too much. Maybe you are overreacting. Maybe your clarity isn't as sharp as you thought. And slowly, you begin to shrink, not because you've lost your ability to see, but because you've learned that truth comes with a heavy price. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. In a world that prizes ease and comfort, truth becomes a rare and expensive commodity. And here's the danger. The more you're ignored, the more tempting it becomes to silence yourself. You learn to read the room before you read your soul. You start censoring what you see just to stay close to people who only love the quieter, more palatable version of you. This is the quiet death of a seer, not because their vision fades, but because they choose to stop offering it. The silence becomes less painful than the constant rejection of what they know to be true. But that silence comes with a cost. There's a moment, a threshold, where you feel it when you realize that if you continue to hide your truth, you may never find your way back to it. The more you dilute yourself for others, the more you fade into nothingness. You start to disappear, becoming a shell of who you are. And the person they love, the person they accept, isn't even the real you. That's when the fork in the road appears. Speak your truth and risk exile, or stay silent and lose yourself forever. It's a brutal choice, but it's not a new one. There was another soul who faced this very decision, a king, a wise one, and what he chose speaks volumes about what it truly means to see clearly in a world that refuses to look. The story of the wise king and the poisoned well isn't just a fable. It's a stark mirror held up to the lives we lead today. There was once a king who wasn't known for his conquests or military might, but for his clarity, his unshakable vision. He ruled a city where reason prevailed, where justice was tangible, and where people felt truly seen. His wisdom was the glue that held the kingdom together. He listened more than he spoke, guiding his people with calm judgment and unwavering clarity. He wasn't perfect. Of course, no one is, but he was wise, and his wisdom was his strength. Then one night, while the city slept, a witch crept into the kingdom and poured a potion into the town's only well. By the time dawn broke, everyone had drunk from it, except for the king. By midday, the effects became apparent. The kingdom descended into chaos. People spoke in riddles, their thoughts tangled and unclear. They accused one another of crimes that never occurred, lost track of time, feared invisible monsters, and sang praises to ideas that had no real meaning. Yet, strangely, they all seemed fine to each other, as though their madness was just another part of daily life. It was the king, however, who now seemed out of place. He stood apart, grounded in his clarity, trying to make sense of the chaos. When he tried to speak reason, to explain what was happening, his words fell on deaf ears. They looked at him with suspicion, whispering behind closed doors. They called him unwell. The king's clarity, which once anchored the kingdom, now made him seem like an anomaly. He was the one who had changed, not them. By nightfall, the people had decided they would remove him, not because he had failed them, but because he hadn't joined them in their madness. He had stayed the same, and in their eyes, that made him strange. So the king stood alone in his chamber, holding a goblet of water drawn from the poisoned well. The choice was clear: drink and be accepted, or refuse and be cast aside. With a heavy heart, he drank. The next morning, the city erupted in joy. "Our king is one of us again," they declared. "He understands now." But the truth was, the king didn't understand. He hadn't joined them in their madness. He had simply given up trying to be understood. And so, the madness continued, polite, structured, and celebrated, all while clarity silently withered in the shadows. This story is not about kings and wells. It's about now. It's about you. How often have you found yourself hiding your insight just to fit in? How many times have you laughed at jokes you didn't find funny just to avoid being the odd one out? How many times have you nodded along, even when every fiber of your being screamed no, just to keep the peace? You've tasted from the well, even if you didn't realize it. Slowly, gradually, you've let go of the parts of yourself that saw too much, felt too deeply, or spoke too early. You've sipped from the well until your truth became something you no longer recognized, something that fits comfortably in conversations you once couldn't bear. But under that comfort, there's a deep, unspoken grief. The kind of grief that comes from abandoning your truth to keep the peace. Carl Jung warned us about this. He said, "The greatest danger isn't in being wrong. It's in losing yourself inside the collective, in trading your clarity for applause, in giving up your mind so you don't lose your tribe. The most insidious part of the well is that it doesn't always feel like a choice at first. It feels like survival. But the cost of survival without authenticity is steep. It's the slow erosion of everything that makes you who you are. Every time you silence yourself, every time you push aside what you know to be true, you are drinking from that poisoned well. And with every sip, you lose a little more of yourself. The question is, when will you stop drinking? When will you choose to be the king who stands apart, grounded in clarity, no matter the cost? Because the price of silence is not just loneliness, it's the slow, painful loss of your soul. He knew that individuation, the process of becoming your true, full self, requires solitude. It's not just a choice, it's a demand. It asks you to step out of the current, even when it carries everyone you love along with it. It challenges you to confront the ache of being different, the deafening silence that comes with walking alone, and the deep fear of never being fully understood. But as much as this journey demands of us, he also left us something powerful, a thread of hope. He wrote, "No matter how isolated you are, if you do your work truthfully and conscientiously, unknown friends will come and seek you." These aren't saviors, they aren't crowds, they are simply people, real ones, who don't flinch at your truth. They are the ones who won't ask you to shrink, who won't confuse your clarity for coldness or your depth for drama. They will recognize you for who you truly are, and they will stand by you. But here's the catch: you won't find them if you keep drinking from the poisoned well. You won't find them if you keep pretending to be someone you're not. You find them by standing firm in your truth, even when it costs you the approval of the room. You find them by staying clear and grounded, even when the world around you celebrates confusion. You find them by choosing to speak, not because it's safe, but because it's real. Maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you're still holding that goblet, still trying to weigh the cost of your truth. And that's okay. But know this, every time you choose to stay silent, when you know something isn't right, a part of you goes quiet too. Every time you withhold your truth, even for the sake of peace, you are slowly dimming the light within you. But when you speak, when you stand in your truth, even if your voice shakes, even if no one listens, you keep something alive inside, something rare, something sacred. It's the part of you that was never meant to conform, but to awaken those who are still sleeping. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Not all burdens are loud. Some of them sit quietly on your chest in the middle of a conversation. They smile, nod, and pretend everything is fine, while you feel the weight of everything that's left unsaid. They don't scream for attention. They hum quietly, just beneath the noise of daily life. And that's the strange thing about being the one who sees too much. It's not always the seeing that hurts. It's the pretending that you didn't. You've probably done it without even realizing. You're at dinner, and someone says something off. The energy shifts, the mood darkens, but no one acknowledges it. You feel the tension in the air before anyone else does. You catch the glance, the micro-expression, the subtle withdrawal that says so much. You know something just happened, but everyone else seems oblivious. So, you stay quiet. You don't want to be that person again, the one who points out what others don't want to see. You know how it ends. They tell you you're overreacting, that you're reading too much into it. They invalidate your experience, make you question yourself. But here's the thing, you're not wrong. You're not overreacting. The truth is, you're tired. You're tired of being the only one who can name the invisible. You're tired of seeing the undercurrents that no one else notices, and of carrying the weight of truth while everyone else keeps pretending. And that, my friend, is the price of clarity. The loneliness that comes from being the one who sees what others refuse to acknowledge. But don't let that silence you. Keep speaking, even if your voice shakes, even if the world tells you you're too much. Because in that act of speaking, in that act of standing tall, you keep your soul alive. And one day, someone will hear you. and they'll understand. And so you edit. You withhold. You smile more than you want to. You simplify your thoughts so they land without resistance. You become fluent in small talk, learning to say just enough to fit in, even though it leaves you hollow. You hold back, not because you lack the words, but because you've learned what truth costs in a room that doesn't want it. You become a master at camouflaging your inner world, hiding the parts of you that crave authenticity, in favor of keeping things light, keeping things easy. Psychologists call it masking. Some may call it fitting in, but Jung, he might have called it soul loss. Regardless of the term, the result is the same. You begin to disappear, and no one notices. The version of you they see still functions. You show up. You say all the right things. You smile at the right moments. You fit into the spaces around you, even as the real you, the full you sinks deeper and deeper beneath the surface, unspoken, undervalued, unreachable. This is the quiet cost of clarity. It's not the suffering of being misunderstood. It's the slow erosion of your soul from constantly understanding everyone else, but never being understood in return. The world demands you carry the emotional labor. It demands that you absorb the discomfort so the room can stay light, so everyone else can stay comfortable. And eventually, it feels so normal to adjust, to shrink, to suppress the depth of who you are, that you stop noticing the toll it takes. But here's the most dangerous part: you get good at it. So good that you forget how much you've buried. You forget how much of yourself you've locked away until one day it catches up with you. It may show up as burnout, as a sudden wave of grief that makes no sense, or as the painful realization that you've surrounded yourself with people who appreciate you more for your silence than for your truth. And that, my friend, is when the reckoning begins. The real work of individuation, what Jung so powerfully spoke of, isn't just about discovering who you are. It's about unlearning who you became to survive. It's not only about waking up, it's about coming back to the parts of you that once spoke freely, to the little intuitions you used to trust before the world taught you to doubt them. But reclaiming that truth, the moment you start to gather the pieces of yourself back together, it isn't easy. Because when you start to reclaim your clarity, you begin to lose the camouflage you've spent so long perfecting. You become visible again, not as the agreeable, palatable version the world is comfortable with, but as the real one. And that's where the loneliness spikes again. Because often, the people closest to you have never met this version of you, the one that's finally emerging. And some of them won't want to. But don't let that stop you. The life you want, the connections you crave, the freedom you deserve, they only exist on the other side of pretending. And here's what happens when you stop hiding. The weight doesn't go away. It doesn't vanish, but it starts to shift. It's no longer a secret, no longer a source of shame. It transforms into something else, something useful, something sacred. The burden becomes something that glows, something that illuminates you from the inside out. And in doing so, it frees you. You no longer carry it in the dark. You carry it in the light, and it begins to empower you instead of diminishing you. That's the beauty of reclaiming your truth. It doesn't just set you free, it transforms everything you touch. It happens so slowly, you barely notice. One day, you're carrying the weight of your insight like a curse, like a burden no one else can understand. Next, you're offering it like a lantern, lighting the way for others who've been wandering in the dark. You didn't do it because the world suddenly got easier. No, you did it because you did. You stopped treating your perception like a problem that needed to be fixed, a burden that needed to be shed. You stopped apologizing for your depth, for the parts of you that others might call too much, too intense, too overwhelming. You realized that your sensitivity wasn't a flaw. It was a compass, guiding you through the unseen corners of the world, the places others may never dare to venture. You saw that your inner noise wasn't chaos, it was guidance, a gentle whisper urging you to follow your path, even when it was unclear. The very things you once tried to suppress, the parts of yourself you tried to quiet or hide, were the exact things someone else was desperately praying to find. Your truth, your depth, your ability to see beyond the surface, they were gifts, not curses. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the integration of the whole self. Not the self you curated, not the self you compromised into acceptability, but the real self, the full self. The self that contains the sacred contradiction of soul and shadow, logic and feeling, chaos and clarity, all held together by one thing: courage. And that courage, it doesn't look like dominance. It doesn't demand attention or control. It looks like stillness. It looks like choosing to speak, even when your voice shakes, even when you fear being misunderstood. It looks like staying rooted in your truth, even when the world asks you to bend, to conform, to shrink yourself down. It looks like telling the truth, not because you want to be right, but because you want to be real. And something remarkable happens when you do. People begin to appear. Not crowds, not noise, but kindred spirits, quiet ones, observant ones, people who see you for who you truly are, not just the mask you've worn to fit in, but the light behind your eyes. These are the people who have walked through their version of the fire and recognize the burn marks on yours. They won't need you to explain. They'll already know. They'll understand, because they've been there too. And in that understanding, something sacred is born. It's not just connection, it's recognition. You'll finally see that the very things that once made you feel different, made you feel isolated, were the very things that would one day bring you together with those who needed you most. In that moment, you'll realize that the lantern you've been carrying for so long wasn't a burden at all. It was the gift you were meant to give. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. I hope you've gained some insight into the power of embracing your true self, the courage it takes to stop pretending, and the profound connections that await when you finally stand in your truth. So, what have you learned from today's message? What resonated with you the most, and what will you bring into your life from this point forward? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please take a moment to comment below and share one thing you've learned and how you plan to apply it. Your voice matters, and your journey matters. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave your comment, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Together, we can keep building a space where authenticity thrives